Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Terumot. We are up to Perek Yud Mishnah Hey. Today's Mishnah Yud should be Le'inu Nishmat, Neria ben Svetlana Aranbayev, and Eliyahu ben Burchai Israelov, Menuchatam beGen Eden, Amen. Today's Mishnah is going to deal with chulin wine that absorb the flavor of fenugreek, of terumah, or of other types of produce that have sanctity. Fenugreek is a plant whose seeds are used as a spice. So the Mishnah says, Tiltan shenafla letoch abo shel yain, if fenugreek fell into a pit containing chulin wine, the halacha is as follows. Before we say the halacha, the Mefarshim explain the stock of the fenugreek plant is not edible. However, it has the same flavor as the fenugreek seeds. So here, in our case, the entire fenugreek plant, including the stock, fell into the wine. So because wine is so strong, it absorbs the taste of the fenugreek stalks and seeds. So the Mishnah is going to discuss whether the flavor of the inedible stock must be included when we determine the status of the wine. So the Mishnah says the halacha is as follows. Bitruma maaser sheni. If it was fenugreek of terumah or maaser sheni we know is the second tithe, the portion that is separated from produce during the first, second, fourth, and fifth year of the 7-year Shemitah cycle. It has to be eaten in Yerushalayim or redeemed with money, which is then used to buy food that is eaten in Yerushalayim. So the Mishnah says, if the fenugreek is terumah or maaser sheni, the Mishnah says, Im yesh bazera kidei tam. We calculate whether the fenugreek seeds on their own can give flavor to the wine. The Mefarshim explain, even if the flavor of the fenugreek can be detected in the wine's not going to be necessarily subject to the laws of terumah and maaser sheni. We have to calculate whether if the seeds alone were put into the wine, would their flavor be detected in the wine? Avalo ba'etz. However, we do not take into account whether the stalks can give flavor to the wine, because since the fenugreek stalks are not eaten, they are not subject to terumah and maaser sheni. Therefore, only the flavor contributed by the seeds need to be considered. And the Rav explains something that is not eaten does not have the sanctity of terumah or maaser sheni. So since fenugreek stalks are not eaten, they do not have the sanctity of terumah or maaser sheni, and therefore the flavor of the stalks is also not considered terumah or maaser sheni. It's regular flavor. And therefore, we only have to take the flavor contributed by the seeds into account. Therefore, we measure the wine and the seeds. If that amount of seeds could give flavor to the wine on their own, then the wine is subject to the laws of terumah or maaser sheni. However, if the seeds alone cannot give flavor to the wine is permitted, even though the seeds and stalks together give flavor to the wine. However, b'shvi'it u'v'chilei akerem v'hekdesh, if it was fenugreek of shvi'it, kilaim of the vineyard, meaning it grew near a grapevine, or hekdesh that fell into the wine. And the Mefarshim explain, when we say if it was fenugreek of shvi'it, the Mefarshim say that is fenugreek that grew during the Shemitah year. We know produce that grows during the Shemitah year is subject to many restrictions. For example, it has to be removed from the house when a certain date arrives. And if it was kilaim of the vineyard, meaning we know when a different species is planted within a certain distance of a grapevine or vineyard, it is forbidden to benefit from that plant and the grapevine. Or if it was hekdesh is sacred property of the Bet HaMikdash. Items that are hekdesh are forbidden for benefit unless they are redeemed. So if it was fenugreek of shvi'it, kilaim of the vineyard, or hekdesh that fell into the wine, im yesh bazera u'ba'etz kidei tam. We measure whether the seeds and stalks of the fenugreek together can give flavor to the wine. Because since fenugreek stalks are subject to the laws of shvi'it, kilaim of the vineyard, and hekdesh, the flavor of the stalks must also be taken into account. The Mefarshim explain, since the fenugreek stalk has the same flavor as the seeds, the halacha of Shemitah apply even to the stalk. Likewise, by kilaim of the vineyard, it applies even to inedible parts of the plant. And in the case of the hekdesh, the owner sanctified the entire plant, and therefore the stalks are also sanctified. So since the stalks are subject to these laws, their flavor is also taken into consideration, and therefore as long as the taste of fenugreek can be detected, the wine is forbidden, if these seeds and stock together can give flavor to the wine. That is in Rabotai of Mishnah Hey. Mishnah Vav now continues to discuss the halachot of the stalks of the fenugreek plant. If someone has bundles of fenugreek of kilaim of the vineyard, meaning the Mefarshim explain fenugreek was planted close to a grapevine, after it grew it was made into bundles, obviously would apply, the Mefarshim explained, to unbundled fenugreek as well. The Mishnah says, Yidaleku, the halacha is that they must be entirely burned with the stalks, and this is because the laws of kilayim of the vineyard apply even to the inedible parts of the plant, which we learned, the Rav says, kilayim of the vineyard is forbidden for benefit and it must be burned. The Mishnah now discusses how to separate terumah from the fenugreek plants. If one has bundles of fenugreek of tevel, kotesh, he may pound them to remove the fenugreek seeds from the stalks in order to separate terumah only from the seeds. And then he estimates how much seeds they contain. He then separates some of the seeds as terumah. He does not, however, need to separate some of the stalks as terumah. Only edible items are subject to the obligation of terumah, and the fenugreek stalks we said are not edible. Therefore, one may remove the fenugreek seeds from the stalks and separate terumah from the seeds alone. And the Mefarshim explain, like we learned in chapter 4, Mishnah 3, the Chachamim established the percentage of the crop that is to be given as terumah. Nevertheless, when you calculate the amount to separate, you're not allowed to weigh or measure the produce that you're separating. Rather, you have to estimate the amount, like we said in chapter 1, Mishnah 7. So our Mishnah is teaching us that when you separate terumah from a bundle of fenugreek, you can detach the seeds from their stalks and then estimate the amount of terumah to be given from the seeds. However, you don't have to separate any terumah from these stalks. So Mishnah now teaches the halacha if a person didn't follow this procedure, but instead he separated terumah from complete fenugreek plants. If one separated terumah from fenugreek plants without first removing the seeds, he may not say, I will now pound the fenugreek that I separate as terumah to remove the seeds, and I will take the stalks for myself and give only the seeds as terumah to a kohen. Rather, he gives the stalks to a kohen along with the seeds. And the Mefarshim explain, although there's no obligation to give terumah from the stalks, if he did not remove the seeds, if he didn't first remove the seeds, but instead he designated the entire fenugreek plant as terumah, he must give both the seeds and the stalks to a kohen. And the Mefarshim explain, although the sages required that they be given to a kohen, the stalks are not going to be actual terumah, even if they were designated as terumah. Therefore, we said in the previous Mishnah, when fenugreek fell into wine, we don't include the flavor of the stalks when calculating the amount of flavor needed to forbid the wine, even though they were designated as terumah, because the reason is the stalks are not actual terumah and they don't have sanctity of terumah, even midrabanan, but the sages decreed they have to be given to a kohen. That's the only thing that the Chachamim added. And that is in Rabotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen v'amen.